Hello, this is your 7.34 tutorial. We're going to go ahead and start this drawing by going to New. Your template file should be saved in a designated location. Mine is currently saved in my documents. I'm going to go to the McFatter templates folder. I'm going to use the McFatter ACAD. For the simplicity of this video, I'm going to turn off the grid so you don't see that. This next step I'm about to do, you do not have to do. I'm going to go ahead and load the tutorial or the problem that we'll be working on today. Now, while we're at the start of the drawing, it's a good idea to go ahead and save the drawing. So we're going to go ahead and do save. Save as is going to come up as a default. Make sure to go to the file where you save your assignments. This should be in the Chapter 7 folder. This will be the 7.34 drawing file. Now that we've saved it, it's now visible at the top with the name. Now we're ready to start with our line command. I'm going to draw a line from a random spot on the left-hand side going into the right direction. The distance of the overall center to center distance is 9. Next thing I'm going to do is draw the circles. I'm going to use the diameter circle. Place it at the end point of the line. The diameter for the inner hole is 2.75. Enter. I'm going to do diameter again. Pick the now center point. Also could be end point. With a diameter of 4.25. All right, I'm going to do the other side with a diameter of 1. I'm going to do another circle with a diameter command, placing at the end point again, 2.13. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a line command. This is going to be a new command. To get this window to pop up, you're going to press Control, then right-click. This will bring up our immediate snap commands. You could do this at any time you want a particular snap and only that particular snap to show up. We're going to be using the tangent snap. Once we click on that, we can pretty much pick anywhere along the circle on the top part of it that we want. Then you can see as the line moves, it adjusts itself to be tangent to the surface of that circle. We're then going to drag it over to the side here. We're going to use the Control key. And then right-click again. We're going to use tangent again. And now we can go ahead and place that anywhere on the top part of the circle. And it automatically links. And these are the exact tangent points. Notice that it does not hit the quadrant here. And it does not hit the quadrant here. Because this line here is tangent between the two circles, as you can see going from one to the other. Now, if you're having any difficulty, if your ortho command is on, sometimes that can drive you a little nuts. You can turn that off. But with using these snap points, we do not have to turn it off. I would choose to leave mine on. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in the line command. I'm going to hold the control button, right click, select my tangent, select anywhere on the bottom of the circle, move my line over, control right click, and then tangent again, selecting on that point. I'm going to now erase the line that I started off with for constructing the outer shape. Now I need to locate the holes in the middle for my shaft, or my slot. I'll start with the line command, making sure to hit the center of the circle, pointing it in the direction, into my right direction. The first distance given is 3. I will type in 3. Then I will continue the line, and I'll move it 3.5. Right click, enter. Now, if I look at the piece, you'll notice that it's measuring from the top to the bottom. This right here is a diameter dimension of my circles. And notice that it says a radius of 2, stating that the radius of this side and this side here are the same. So that lets us know that that's going to be a perfect diameter for the sides of these circles. So what I'm going to do is now use the circle command with diameter. Go to the end point. Just move your mouse across until you see this square point with an end. If you do not see that snap point, you could turn it on down here at Object Snap, making sure that endpoint is on. And if you don't see this icon here, you can load it by turning it on here with a check mark. So now, as I'm going through this, I will type in the diameter of 1.25. And then I'm going to draw another circle diameter, the end point of this line, 1.25. And now I'll draw a line from the top quadrant to the top quadrant of this. And then repeat the line, top quadrant to top quadrant, bottom quadrant. I'll use the trim command, trim, selecting the top line, selecting the bottom line, right click, and I'll do a crossing window to select both inner arcs, right click, enter. Now I can go ahead and remove my construction lines, evaluate the drawing. Overall, looks like it's all done. Got all my information placed. Now I'll go ahead and I'll select my object lines and make them into object line. Now let's evaluate our sheet size. Since the drawing is complete, let's go ahead and save the drawing. I can use this icon here to do quick save, or I can press the A to hit the save icon here. Either or. Now let's evaluate our sheet. Let's try a 8.5, 8.5 by 11. We'll click inside the viewport, double click the center scroll button to zoom in the project. Try and get it to about the center of the screen. Once you're done with that, change the scale to 1:1. We'll notice that this is too small for this size sheet. We could do 1 to a half inch, 1:2 scale. That would fit our drawing quite nicely. We could also evaluate and see if we want to do an 11 by 17 in landscape. Double click inside the viewport, center it best we can. If you need to zoom in or zoom out, or center scroll button twice to zoom all, you can do that. I'll check the size and see at 1:1. This will fit on this sheet at 1:1 scale. Evaluating between the two sheets, what gives us the most room to work for dimensions and things of that nature. Between looking at the two different sheet sizes, I believe that the 8.5 at 11 at half scale looks like more room than our 11 by 17 at 1:1 scale. You can always ask the instructor at the time which size sheet you prefer, but through this tutorial, I'm going to recommend the 8.5 by 11. Once we've established what sheet size we'd like to do, double click on the gray area. Then I'm going to go ahead and go back to model space. This you do not have to do. I'm going to move this out of my view so it doesn't come into my viewport. And what we can do here is start putting in our dimensions and our center lines. Let's go ahead and start with our center lines. So I'm going to change to the center line layer. I'm going to go to annotate. Also want to make sure that the bottom of the screen, my scale is set to 1:2. Now when I use the center mark tool, always in the largest circle, put the center marks in. Okay. I want to connect these two center lines. So I'm going to go back to home, start with the center line. I'm going to use the inside of the gap and move to the other inside of the gap to create a nice clear break for the center line. I can also connect this center line here to the center line here, just to show a relationship between those center lines. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my dimension style to annotation. For this, to see how best layout of the dimensions would look, I'm going to go to my sheet. And in my sheet, I can now click on the viewport twice. To prevent me from zooming in and zooming out, changing my scale, I'm going to go ahead and lock the viewport at my 1:2 scale. I can now zoom in and zoom out without changing the scale of my viewport. If I double click inside, you see that I'm inside my model space, and I can now dimension the drawing without any worry of changing my scale. Let's go ahead and do our linear dimension for our end here. The grid is showing up. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off here as well to go ahead and make it easier to see. Going to have another dimension from here to here. So 3. And I'm going to do another dimension from here to there and line it up, that dimension. Then I'm going to do some diameter dimensions. Locating the inner hole right here. And locating the outer hole down here. And then I'm going to dimension the inner hole here. And the outer hole, the other circle there. Now, you may see the center mark is a little bit distorted and messed up in some places. This one looks pretty clean, but this one is definitely not what we want. I'm going to select all of the diameter dimensions. I'm going to right click, go to Properties, and in here, under Lines and Arrows, I'm going to change the center mark to none. I'll close Properties, hit the Escape key to unselect my dimensions. Okay, let's place one more dimension, linear dimension, from this midpoint to this midpoint here. Placing the dimension. I'm going to also make sure this is not on my drawing. I'm going to move it off. I could also select it and move it to my left. You'll see that as long as I'm touching the dimension on the text, you'll see a node pop up. If I avoid the text as I move to the left, then I can avoid that and move it closer to the center. I'm going to go ahead and hit Escape. Then I'm going to go ahead and create a leader. Pointing at the circle. I'm going to turn ortho off so I can draw this at a nice clean angle. I believe this will be a capital R times 2. Let's go ahead and confirm that with the sheet. 2 times R, so I'll make that correction. I can go ahead and make that correction in model space. You won't have to. You have the paper in front of you, so you can type in the correct information. 2 R. Okay, looking pretty good. Reviewing all my dimensions, making sure I have all the appropriate information in. Now, I noticed this dimension here is only at 2 places. Typically, you'd want all your dimensions to be at the same space, but just for informational sake, I will show you how to change that. If we click on that dimension, right-click Properties, and go to Primary Units, Precision, we could change that to 2 places. Then I hit Escape. Then only that one dimension is affected. I feel that Mr. Regas would prefer this to be uniform with the rest of the drawing. So I'm going to change it back. To 3 places. But in that demonstration, I showed you how to do that. And you can also inquire with Mr. Rodriguez whether you want that dimension to say 2 or 3 places. I'm going to hit the X to close my properties. We'll look over the drawing one more time. Looks like I have all my dimensions. Once I've checked my drawing, I can now go back to my landscape, double click in the gray, get out of the viewport, examine the drawing again, making sure that all layers are correct. Everything looks nice and clean. From here, go ahead and change, double click on the text to change your project, your scale, insert your name as drawn by, your date, and sheet 1 of 1. Once you're done, make sure you save the drawing. And then after you've saved the drawing, go to Print, continue to plot single sheet, and in here, you should say Drawing to PDF. You could review the drawing by hitting Preview. Once you've seen the drawing is nice and clean, you can go ahead and close that, and then press the OK button. Once the OK button has been pressed, you'll get a prompt to save it as a PDF. Save this with all your completed work, and then turn it in. This has been your .34 tutorial, and I'll see you in the classroom. Bye-bye.